As we as we reach the midpoint in this summit, Martha and I thought it would be a good opportunity to do some landings and launchings. What do we mean by that? Well, the landings are kind of where are we at? Let's touch down from the conversations and the like, and figure out what some of the takeaways might be, what some of the insights were. And the launchings, let's think about what lies ahead in terms of what's coming up tomorrow with more activities, and actually what's coming up tonight with dinner, and how we'll move through this. So I'm going to turn the time over to Martha and let her manage this session, and I will. I'm the logistics guy. I will be back with logistics afterwards. So Martha.
Midpoint in the session. The first thing we'd like to do now is just hear briefly from each of the three sessions that we just had. What are a couple of key insights, takeaways, surprises, things that you had? And I'll turn to the people who were running it first, but maybe you delegated that to somebody else. So, Fina? Okay, Roy? Not long, but just a couple of key insights.
Okay, so my name is Roy Anderson. I was a part of Dr. Fina May's activity, and I am really apologetic for all of you that were not allowed to be at Fina's presentation because it was absolutely phenomenal. So the idea is the heart of leadership. There are first 4 phases of that, the first one being present. How many of you have been in meetings where everyone's on their text, on their emails, and every once in a while they look up going, yeah, that was a good point, and they go right back to their text again? If you're the leader doing that, then maybe, just maybe, you don't show the presence that's required. Second is, are you relating to the individuals that are there? So do you understand the situation? Do you understand the content and the people of that activity? And then third, are you making sense of this? Do you have the understanding of what it takes to be able to then understand the people around you so that you can make sense of it and then ultimately get to action? So the idea is, well, a good leader has those first 4, but that's not all. Then the question is, do you know why you have service? Do you have the heart of a leader, the center of it that says, I know what my why is for each of the activities that I'm doing? Why am I standing up in front and be able to take on this role? Do I have the heart of a leader? And that's what makes for a powerful leader. Interestingly enough, she asked for 200 stories. Leadership power never came up. But that a leader gave me the opportunity to grow. And that a leader was basically someone that gave me an enabling capability without holding me back. And then what we learned from the group is that if you give someone the opportunity to challenge themselves, but back them up and understand that if things go wrong, the leader takes responsibility. When things go right, the praise goes to the individuals. And that's a little bit of what Fina brought to us.
Whoa! Whoa! Before I let you go, though, what does it have to do with our theme of middle management?
So the key
you
element,
can delegate that one off too if you want.
In terms of middle management, as a leader in the middle management ranks, either below you, are you enabling those individuals? Are you giving them a sense of purpose for what they're doing? And as upper managers, are you laying that foundation for people to get the training so that they feel enabled, so that they have a sense of purpose?
Okay, good. Good. Lots of great storytelling there. Okay, so putting the heart in the middle, the service, a lot of discussion about the difference between service and purpose, the relationship with storytelling, and you did it beautifully. So in here we had a session on the classic middle management dilemma. So let's have just a summary of a couple of highlights from that. Charlie? Yeah, please.
We were fortunate to have 3 very global companies of quite different sizes and different industries talk about how they sort of generated a culture around management development. What was the role of the corporate entity versus the business operations, how they use jobs, how they use mentors, how they use their own stories. We talked a little bit about the use of outside executive education resources for bringing in the expertise, but tailoring the delivery to what was most relevant for the organization. And I think couple of the real high points were when we started talking about different locations around the world and different approaches that were used, either example in Russia, of having a team come together to help scope out and build a business where one didn't exist. Talked about some language barriers and what was the duty and the responsibility of the company to make opportunities available for people to develop those language skills and to be very clear about the consequences of choosing not to take certain assignments or certain training. And so I think overall it was a lot of good questioning, give and take, but I think most importantly we had three companies that I think we chose them that way, really did a good job of driving a culture of middle management development. So I think that was kind of what I walked away with.
Great, and lots of great discussion and dialogue in the room here. What I heard too is a lot of very, very practical examples and ideas that people could take back and use right away about developing middle managers in their own areas. Very applied, yeah. And then in the third room, we had a nice discussion about middle managers who are women. So some specific issues, challenges, opportunities around developing this particular group. So Iris?
Yeah, we didn't really wrap up and say who was going to talk today, so everybody who was in my group, please jump in. So we did put a gender lens on global leadership and talked about women. That's our specialty at Smith College, and so I shared a lot about what we're doing, but the group was really on par with just about everything we said, I thought. We talked about what's holding women back, what are the obstacles, and a lot about that internal conflict for women, feeling like when they become mothers, they feel conflicted. You know, I want to be a mother, but I want to work, I want my career. I was been told I can have it all, but it's not quite working out that way. So what do I do about that? We talked about, lack of inspiring female role models. So there's a tendency to kind of think we have to be a certain way, a certain male way. So what Duncan was talking about earlier about being our authentic self, how do we do that? How do we play the game like a man but win like a woman? You know, how do we come to work and be who we are? And a lot of women feel conflict around that. So there were a lot of stereotypes that we talked about in that regard. We talked about, women aren't really sure they want that added responsibility. They're already taking so much responsibility. They're doing double duty. They're going home and taking care of the kids. So there's a question about that. Also, the risk-averse aspect of women not saying yes while the guy down the hall gets asked if he wants a promotion, and maybe there are 10 criteria and he has 3, and he says, yeah, I can do it. And the woman is waiting until she has 9.9, until she feels qualified. So, that encouragement to women to just say yes and get moving. The organizational cultures are still kind of lagging behind as far as really being conducive to a woman finding work-life integration. And we had one young man, Josh, are you here, in the room, who was great, and he brought the perspective that he's early in his career. He just graduated a couple of years ago from college, and he wants work-life integration too. And so we talked about the generational thing there of like, it's not just a woman's thing. I like to always say that what's good for women is good for everyone. So we're trying to change that culture. So what else, ladies? We talked about asking for what you want, negotiating higher up. And so we talked about a lot of those things, and then we talked about what are the best practices. And we talked about networking, having a strategic professional network that isn't just your little inner circle of like-minded people, but getting outside that and meeting people who are different than you, who have different power stations, who have different opportunities to offer you, to help you, and how much mentoring and sponsorship is so important to everybody, really, but we talked about women. And the question came up, is it important to have a woman mentor over a man's mentor? And in my experience of talking to a lot of executives, no, it doesn't matter. You just need a mentor, and you need a sponsor. Anything else? You guys were there.
Well, we can, and people can continue those discussions over dinner and
so
that
that
too.
was the gist.
That was the gist. So very, very interesting work. Smith College is, as far as I know, the only business school with the only executive education that only does work with women. So very interesting to focus specifically on this group, and I think they learn an awful lot that's helpful to the rest of them. In fact, I like what they're doing so much, I ended up sending my daughter there as an undergrad. She just started 3 weeks ago, and that was actually through my connection of seeing what they're doing in executive education, which is very interesting. So 3 different panels, 3 very interesting discussions, landings. What I'd love you to do is just turn and talk to the person beside you. Okay, so this is pairs, and I'll just give you a couple of minutes, buzz group, 2 questions. What are a couple of key conclusions from today? And then the more important question, what do you still want to find out tomorrow? Okay, so just turn to the person beside you. Okay, couple of key things from today. We started by looking at the theme of middle managers, looking at middle managers' transitions midlife. We looked at the needs of middle managers as global leaders in organizations, especially development needs. We did the 3 thought leaders sessions. You've had other conversations. So what are a couple of key insights, key takeaways for you today? And I had some volunteers in the front row. Oh, she said, are you looking for volunteers? Yeah. Stand up and turn around so everybody can hear you. Thanks.
Oh, and take a mic. Okay. I've been told I have a big voice, but so there's a lot of ideas going through my head, but I think I was sharing with my partner Karen here that my biggest takeaway from today was recognizing the concept that employees are people and this job fits in to their lives and their aspirations and their larger goals. And that seems very self-evident, but I don't know that that always actually happens in the context of a corporation. And I guess the question I'm left with is how do you overcome that challenge?
Well, or maybe if we take that through to tomorrow, how do you take that as an opportunity?
Or opportunity, not a challenge.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think it's a very important insight, and it bears reminding ourselves. Work is a big part of people's lives, but it's not their whole life, and it becomes a backbone of life, or it's part of the ribs of it or something. But if we see work as a part of an ongoing story of somebody's life, maybe we can be more effective in developing them, in helping them to contribute even more valuably at work, and so on. So both challenge and opportunity. Yeah, great, thank you. Terry, your hand shot up too.
Maybe not shot up, but
Okay.
related.
So you got the microphone right there, yeah.
Related theme. So middle management humans are not monolithic. So leadership and development training is not one size fits all. And we saw and heard about ways to stratify that based on the potential of the individuals, the competency of the individuals in terms of both experiences and more programmatic items. The question becomes, how do you really recognize these individual needs and qualities of humans, individual employees, and still be able to scale something which is cost efficient? That's the opportunity.
Yeah, and I'm glad you finished with that's the opportunity. Yeah. And it's a great insight. We've been talking about middle managers, and by really focusing this lens, we can see the richness of all of the complexities going on. And at the same time, that richness helps us to see that you can't treat it's not one size fits all, as you said. And you know, one of my most interesting roles at IMD was running a middle management program, where I had a lot of people that they were recognized as high potentials, but they weren't the highest. Otherwise, they would already have been higher. And through this 10-week program, watching many of them, and I kind of said, wake up. And suddenly discover things about themselves through this midlife, mid-career, where they ended up becoming much more ambitious, contributing much more, but they had never been labeled as high potentials. They'd never actually found it in themselves. So it's incredibly rewarding to work with them, but if you treat them in a one-size-fits-all way, you'll never find that piece that's inside them that empowers themselves to contribute more to their own lives and their families and communities, as well as to their companies. So I like that insight too. Let's take one more. Takeaway from today. Yeah, the back there, Phil.
We had excuse me, so loud. Several conversations today about the middle manager as a kind of disparaged role, et cetera, et cetera. And Mads made the point earlier that one of the shifts in their world, has been that employees and frontline supervisors are now empowered to do much of the work that middle managers used to do. So the question is, to what extent are middle managers now doing the work or empowered to do the work that senior managers used to do? And that there's been a difficulty in that kind of delegation and empowerment. And it also conjoins this question of age and stage, that I think Duncan used the term 35 to 45. Well, that's about the age when Julius Caesar got started, Cleopatra, and several others. That somehow we haven't prepared people at 35 to see themselves, many, as senior in their leadership capacities and ready to exert. Now, some institutions do that extremely well. Military is one, but not necessarily in business.
And some countries do it well.
Some countries do it better
So
than
in
others.
some countries, you get leadership assignments quite young, especially a lot of emerging markets. But that doesn't mean you can do it well across a lot of situations. You haven't developed the wisdom to see it across situations yet. Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And then of course the question it begs is, now what are senior leaders going to do? If middle leaders are doing what senior leaders used to do, then maybe we don't need senior leaders anymore. What are they doing? Yeah. So these are all great discussions to continue to have, and we've heard already a couple of questions of how we're going. What do I still want to talk about and learn before we get through tomorrow? How do we do all this and make it scalable and cost efficient? How do we think about what they're doing in terms of senior leadership? Are there a couple other things that you thought about that you still want to talk about for tomorrow? Here are the questions that I want to look forward to.
One thing, so where, this is something that I thought of for a number of years, so where middle management is sort of involved more in strategy and less in the day-to-day, talking more about managing up to the senior leaders. How do you get your point across to the senior team? Sell your strategy to the senior team, that sort of thing.
So helping middle managers manage up even more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of it is coming from, in my organization, it's coming from the middle management and then, making sure middle management strategy is aligned with senior management, and middle management sort of selling the strategy and the certain approaches to the senior team, and that's, I wouldn't say it's a big challenge, but it's a skill, and it's a skill, and
sometimes
skill.
I think what's also important is the middle managers have the opportunity to make the strategy meaningful to the senior managers, because the middle managers are often more in touch with the market.
Right, and a lot of middle managers are not trained to do that, to really communicate effectively to the executive, the C-suites, and things like that, and efficiently sell that idea and that.
Yeah. Okay, good. Let's see if we can get that on the in the conversation tomorrow. Thanks. Other things you want to talk about tomorrow? You want to make sure? Burning questions in your mind? I can't go home and sleep unless I answer this tomorrow. I think we're going to continue to have some great discussions over the evening and then also through tomorrow. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan now to set us up for that.